Julianna Peña is the UFC Bantamweight champion.
That's the biggest upset in the history of the sport.
The MMA world experienced an axis-shifting moment when Julianna Peña upset Amanda Nunes and captured the Bantamweight title at UFC 269. It instantly became one of those where were you when moments, shaking up a weight class for the first time in several years. Now, it's up to Peña to defend the belt, and the rest of the division is eagerly jockeying for position when the time comes. Let's take a look at the state of the women's bantamweight division.
This is something that I have been working for my entire career. You know, I'm proving it to myself, I'm gonna prove it to my daughter, and I'm gonna prove it to the rest of the world.
The Venezuelan vixen told us exactly what she was going to do and how she was going to do it.
Julianna Peña shocks the world!
But that didn't diminish her submission win over Amanda Nunes one bit. After the fight, Peña said she expects Nunes to have an immediate rematch. However, if the Nunes fight doesn't happen at first for whatever reason, other enticing fights are there for Peña, including a rematch with flyweight champion Valentina Shevchenko, who submitted Peña when they fought in 2017. No matter what comes next for Peña, she already has etched her name in the history books for her work at UFC 269. On the other side of the coin, Nunes was gracious in defeat, but made it clear on social media that she is coming back to reclaim her belt soon. The loss was Nunes' first in more than 7 years. But if those 7 years have taught us anything, it's not to doubt the Lioness. All things point towards a rematch with Peña sooner rather than later, and that will determine whether this loss was a fluke or something more. Nunes enjoyed an aura of invincibility throughout the last few years, and even though avenging her loss won't recapture that for her, it will restore her status as double champ and perhaps add a different kind of flavour to her GOAT resume. Some people wondered how much longer Holly Holm had left after Nunes knocked her out at UFC 239. But the former champion responded with a win over Raquel Pennington at UFC 246. When the Preacher's Daughter headlined a card against Irene Aldana, she fought with a purposeful vengeance, and it seemed like vintage Holm was back in full force. However, we haven't seen Holm since that fight in October 2020, as injuries kept her out of action since. At 40 years old, time isn't necessarily on Holm's side, so 2022 is a crucial year at this stage of her career. Mexico's Irene Aldana announced herself as a bantamweight contender when she knocked out Ketlen Vieira in 2019. After she stumbled in her first main event opportunity against Holm, she responded with yet another knockout, this time over Yana Kunitskaya. Aldana has the one-punch power to take anyone out, and she made it clear that she is inspired by Brandon Moreno's own championship run and hopes to bring another UFC belt back home to Mexico. Another fighter at an important moment of their career is Aspen Ladd. The 26-year-old missed all of 2020 because of a major knee injury, and problems with the scale led to her return being pushed back until October. In that comeback fight, she came up short against Norma Dumont in a featherweight's main event, and Ladd's performance left many underwhelmed. Ladd has time on her side, however, and when she is on form, she has shown that she is among the most devastating fighters in the division. It wasn't that long ago when Ketlen Vieira was surging up the bantamweight ladder as an undefeated force, before an injury and a knockout loss to Irene Aldana slowed her down. In 2021, Vieira bounced back from a close loss to Yana Kunitskaya with a back-and-forth main event against Miesha Tate. Now Vieira is potentially positioned for a #1 contender fight as the calendar turns to 2022. Miesha Tate and Raquel Pennington figure to play a big part in a title picture as they look for their way back into the top 5. But a looming presence in the division is Valentina Shevchenko. The flyweight queen hasn't necessarily made any noise about returning to bantamweight, but she has expressed an interest in a third crack at Amanda Nunes. Bullet also holds a submission win over Peña, and if the current champion can thwart Nunes again, Shevchenko could have an opportunity to fight for a second belt. But it all depends on what happens with Peña, Nunes, and the Bantamweight title.
I told you! Don't ever doubt me again! Willpower, strength, and determination, it will take you places!
Nobody outside of Peña's closest circle anticipated a world with a belt around her waist. But that's why they fight. And that's why we will always watch.